Sandusky County Fairgrounds was used in a motion picture 1944 called Home in Indiana. I had always heard that State Fair, one of the original versions of the musical State Fair, had been filmed there. Not the case. It was called Home in Indiana, and they decided the Sandusky County Fairgrounds, which at the time in the 1940s was still running harness races.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
Everybody, and welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just ain't typical. I'm Donna, and he's Eric, and we are the Real Siblings. We are professional realtors with Keller Williams, and Eric's in Texas. I'm in Arizona. And for this podcast's purpose, I want you to know that his favorite fair food is roasted corn. And for me, it's still always like the crispy waffles with the powdered sugar or funnel cakes, because those are things I don't make at home. You're going to find out later why this matters. Anyway, as we continue this podcast, we work to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. The topics do vary, and we hope that we provide a little bit about real estate and a little bit about lifestyle, and that equips our listeners with insights into the industry, and then hopefully better equipping you for your next purchase or sale. And I'm going to...
Or at least informing you about what's going on.
Yeah, something. So you got, if you're listening to this, which is the idea of a podcast, you're not going to know that Eric and I both have backgrounds behind us related to state fairs. And Eric has perfectly positioned himself in front of a really tall Texas thing with the cowboy hat.
That's right. This is, as I swing out of the way, the 2023 going into the 2024 season, Big Tex. Big Tex stands in a garden outside of the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas. He is 55 foot tall and has been welcoming guests to the Texas State Fair for decades. 2024 version 2020, now I can't even talk. 2024 version is a little bit different than it had been for years past, because there was a fire and Big Tex caught on fire and had to be replaced. The one that had existed and welcomed millions of visitors over 40 plus years.
Wow.
Was destroyed a few years ago. So this happy guy is the new guy.
Okay, so Eric, 55 feet tall, is that real fabric or is it ceramic made to look like fabric?
Well, I think this one is more of a fabric. The outfit has always been fabric.
Okay, that's what I'm
has a metal frame structure at 55 feet. You've got to have a certain amount of structure support to be able to hold his arms up in the winds and things like that are going to happen.
Yeah.
And costuming changes regularly. He is not necessarily going to look like this coming year when it opens in a few weeks. That's because it's out in the weather for close to a full month. And the Texas sun and the animals and the wind and the dust, you pick a thing.
Yeah, that's why I wondered if it was real or if it was just ceramic made to look like fabric. So I alluded to our favorite foods. And as we go into this and we talk about state fairs in Ohio, where we grew up, Texas, where you live, and Arizona, where I am, with a little bit thrown in from some people on Facebook. You and I each mentioned our favorite food, but you talked about roasted corn. But tell our listeners why roasted corn.
Yeah, roasted corn, it certainly is a Texas thing. I don't ever remember seeing it, any kind of carnivals, fairs, anything like that up
in Ohio,
where we grew up. But it is a Texas tradition. You get corn. They're specially designed roasters that if you're doing it right, you actually put the corn in a little bit of a trough conveyor. It rotates around. There's hot fire. It cooks the corn. The shuck is still on it. And when it comes out, you've got tubs of butter right there. And you just smother that thing with butter. And then you can put on chili powder. You can put on hot pepper. You can do cayenne. You can do lemon pepper, traditional salt, regular black pepper. It's as you want to do it. And years and years ago, when I lived in California and I first got introduced to In-N-Out burgers, yes, there's a correlation here.
Okay.
In-N-Out burger at the time, John Goodman was the advertiser, and he used to talk in his radio commercials about biting into a big, juicy double and it dripping down your hands. The butter, if you do it right, should be running down your arm.
And that just goes into all fair food and all state fair food from the perspective that it's always healthy. I'm going to turn and see if I can get a little more light on me, brother, because usually I have natural light coming into this room, but it's a little cloudy today.
It's a little cloudy with your black and white background. You talked about my background. Your background today, it looks like a grandstands that I asked you initially. That Fremont Speedway, which is obviously much bigger than that. But what have you got behind you?
So this is one that I brought up from the history page of the Arizona State Fair, which, by the way, started when we were a territory because we are one of the youngest states, right, in the Union. And it was really interesting because it talked about, the history talked about those first fairs and there being like animals, like a lot of the fairs, right? But then it went into zebras and giraffes and camels and all this. And I was like, what? It wasn't just cows. So then it transitioned from that to this. And what does this look like? These all look like the car in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to me. I really don't know what year it is.
No, those actually look like they were probably 1940s into 1950s, like little dirt sprint cars.
Yeah.
Not that different than what currently runs on the track that Action built in Fremont, Ohio at the Sandusky County Fairground.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, when you decided to have this conversation about state fairs,
you make it always seem like I'm forcing you into this.
He is. He sends me things and he goes, this is what we're going to talk about. But here's the thing. We, the information Eric first sent was related to how long the fairs are, how long they last, and timing. And so then we talked a little bit about, does it make any sense? So you said the Texas one is coming up. Is that kind of the standard time frame? And how long is your fair?
Yes, it is 24 days and it'll start in September and closes in October. Dates vary based on an opening Friday on a weekend and a closing Sunday. And so depending on how the calendar flows any given year, it's typically 24 days, starting on a Friday, closing on a Sunday. And this year's event opens, scroll down in my notes. The 138th event will start September 27th and closes October 20th.
So yours is comparable to ours. I just looked ours up and ours starts September 20th and goes through the 27th. So really long, in my opinion.
I agree. Considering some of the other statistics that I pulled up from some of the other states, especially we talked in preparing for this recording. And before that, we talked when you're like, what the heck are you suggesting state fairs for? Michigan, neighbor to the north. If you're in Ohio, I know everybody's saying that word incites certain emotional feelings. Yeah. But the Michigan State Fair is only 5 days. It runs August 29th to September 2nd. Wow. So the 29th, the 30th, 31st, 1st, and 2nd. It doesn't even go into Labor Day Monday.
Wow.
Over the weekend, it would be Labor Day, and it runs in Novi, Michigan. I just was very, very surprised that...
I was going to ask where it was. Okay. Yeah.
Arizona's State Fair is where?
In the Phoenix area.
Okay. And ours is Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for you to get to the fairgrounds, it would be
a couple hours.
For me, it's not a day trip. Because to get to the Cotton Bowl, if we wanted to go to the fair, you have to plan days. Because the drive now to Dallas with construction, with traffic, with the growth in this state, I got to figure 5.5 hours.
Wow.
That means at least one overnight, probably two, if you were going to go to the fair for one day.
Yeah.
To go see whatever attraction and event and anything you were going to do.
That was part of the discussion. For those of you that are listeners that know me, you know that I ask many questions on Facebook. So after Eric talked about this, I put it out to, my Facebook friends, specifically asking about Ohio, Texas, and Arizona, but heard from Minnesota people and, other people who had gone to the fair and who hadn't. And you and I grew up really close and went to school super close to the county fairgrounds. So remember clearly everybody that had anything at the county fair. And then the goal, of course, was to win and be able to go to state, right? To go to the state fair. So as we were talking about the dates and the timing, first of all, the county fair in Ohio might be ending this weekend or something. It's a little bit early.
Yeah, today is the next to the last day
of the Sandusky County Fair.
Of the Sandusky County Fair, which is held in Fremont, Ohio.
Right. And so then the Ohio State Fair, when I started asking who's gone to the fair, why do you go to the fair? Predominantly, it was those people who had animals that were going to go, or they won a prize, they're sewing, or they're, something else. That was what happened from why did Northwest Ohio go to the state fair? And to be honest, you guys, I have never gone. I've never been to any of the state fairs. And there's a couple people here who grew up in Ohio who they go to the county one here and the state one almost every year. They just take advantage of every single thing. And I wish I had heard a little bit from them about the why of
that. Was that Chad?
Yeah. Yeah. So a shout out to Gloria Rodriguez. Your son Chad goes to all the fairs and you probably know that.
Does that mean Gloria goes as well?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Inquiring minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always felt like fairs were a fall thing.
Yeah.
And that's just, I guess, because of where we grew up.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is it's harvest. You had, if you're going to do contests for
crops,
largest pumpkin, largest watermelon, largest whatever it is, and if you're going to compete in those things, you've got to have an appropriate growing season to get to that point.
Right. And
the fact that we said right now, Sandusky County Fair is going on, and we don't ever remember it being that early.
This early. No, because we would start school and then the kids that had animals at the fair could leave and go take care of their animals at the fair.
Right. Show up to school late, be to class for a little bit. If they had a showing or whatever, they'd leave again.
Right. Right. And I think we started school more in September. We didn't start in August, So, and that just came up again as somebody had a birthday and we were talking about how old are you when you could start school, and who was the youngest in your class and who was the oldest. And that all was related to the start date and everything like that for school. So Eric, you mentioned the, what's that guy called? Big Tex? Is that what
Big Tex?
Big Tex. The fact that, was it a fire? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was a fire.
Okay. So,
and I can't remember, I didn't go back to try to research to figure out where, when there's a fire on a major icon like this, what happened? Was it an electrical lighting? Because at 55 foot, he's got some pretty decent electrical lighting from the ground up to keep him lit and smiling and everything else. Was there an electrical short? Was there intentional? Yeah. I don't remember what it was.
So as we researched a little bit about these fairs, I mentioned to you, I said there was interruptions all the time. So the first Arizona fair was a territorial fair in 1884. It was not a state fair because we were not a state, and then I read that it was interrupted due to the cotton crop failure. So as you were talking about when are crops, when do they come up, and who's going to take something to the fair, the fact that the fair either got canceled or was delayed or whatever because of a poor cotton crop just goes back to say that, yeah, we're bringing together vegetables and farmers and people whose lives are dependent upon the weather, right? And then further in Arizona, it was interesting. It said there was no fair during the Depression. I don't know how long. During World War I, during World War II, and COVID. So as I researched the number of years, there was this huge span from the end of World War II till COVID, till 2020. And in Ohio, when I went back to that one, it talked about 1849, that there was a cholera epidemic of some sort. And so they stopped the planning because of cholera. So we think sometimes that we live in a world where this has never happened before, whatever this is. And it's happening.
Right. It's like guarantee there's been something
Right.
that came up that was an interruption somehow, some way, somewhere. 138 years of the Texas Fair. That's through the Dust Bowl era and sharecroppers leaving to go. It's been going on. It's been running. It's been doing in one form or another. It was interesting. You had made the comment that it's like, well, you did county fairs
Right.
to be winners to go to the state fair, but the state fair in Ohio has already happened.
Yeah, that is weird.
So I don't know.
Would they have already judged? We'll have to ask our Ohio listeners. Have they already judged the 4-H projects and things like that? And then they already know if they're going to go to state, but they still do county. I don't know. It's very interesting. You know what else, Eric, which I thought was fascinating, because so many people think only of the desert when they think of Arizona, and, don't realize, about Flagstaff and the mountains and some of the other things. But the original territorial fair was on the banks of the Salt River. And in 1891, it was flooded and washed it out. All the buildings and everything flooded in Arizona, and they had to move the location. So people don't think of Arizona in floods very often, right?
And part of the reason, I guess you could say, as much as we lived rural, we were not farm kids.
Correct. Yeah.
We lived in the small town. We did not have animals aside from our cat and dog when I got my dog when I was teenager.
Yeah.
We didn't have those things. We didn't have the focus, the interest. We wouldn't know those things specifically.
Right.
Not like some. We had talked in the previous conversation when we kind of mentioned this. You never really entered or competed or did anything with the fair, right?
I
county
did.
fair.
I did sewing at the county fair. Yeah. Simply because all my friends did. Right.
Okay. So this is back in your high school days where you were sewing, or back with when you moved back?
No, high school. High
Okay.
School. Yeah.
So high school days, you entered sewing, did your ribbons?
Yeah.
Awards, trophies?
Yeah. And this is just a tidbit about Donna that was just ridiculous. All my friends had already been sewing for a while, and plaid fabric was in style. And I made a plaid jumper, and I had never sewn before. Matching plaids. Mother could not stand being around me because I'm so unorganized compared to her. And looking back on it, it's like saying, let's make the hardest thing we can possibly make the first time we sew, just. So I'm sure
why not?
Yeah. So
well, and as we talk about state fairs, we talk about it being an event. In Arizona, the territorial fair became the state fair, and it's the only one.
Right.
Same thing in Ohio, same thing in Michigan, same thing here in Texas. However, Idaho, which you think of the population of Idaho, is it driving distance? What is it? They actually have 3.
Really? And they call them all state fairs?
They all call them state fairs with some sort of geographic designation. So the earliest one is Western Idaho, which started August 6th and runs through the 25th. Northern Idaho started on the 16th and will run to the 25th. And Eastern Idaho doesn't start until August 30th and then runs until September 7th. So different location, different grounds, different participants. I'm sure some of the events have the same people.
Yeah.
That are moving animals, competing product, whatever, going to each. But I guess from my standpoint, when you have a state that has a population that is equivalent to the population of the Phoenix metro area,
right,
or the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex, the need for having 3 separate state fairs. But that's one of those going, how hard is it to get from northern Idaho, the small panhandle, all the way up at the Canadian border,
right,
down to Coeur d'Alene, which is
Boise,
where all the cities were.
Yeah. So Coeur d'Alene's pretty far north. But part of that makes me think, is it also because it is so rural that there are more ranchers and farmers and things happening? And maybe we need to find some Idaho peeps. Maybe what's grown and what happens in northern Idaho is entirely different than southern because of the shape of the state. you know?
It was an interesting in looking at it. Maine has a couple of fairs,
Yeah.
and they do not run continuous days. They run continuous weekends.
Oh, wow.
So Maine has one that runs 3 days, takes 4 days off, and comes back for 3 more days.
That's really interesting. That would have kept all the kids in school. No, they
It
wouldn't.
keeps the kids in school. And of course, if you're a business person, but what if you're the carnival person?
Yeah.
I think the county fair had listed that there were like 53 food vendors at this year's county fair in Ohio. If you're only there for 3 days and you have to leave your food truck, your cart, whatever it is, and what do you do for those 4 days? Do you go home and come back and reload product? I mean, refrigeration, everything that goes into that.
Wow.
That honestly, I guess you just don't think about.
That's a good point. Eric, did you?
What about cotton candy? Sorry, I just had this flash in my head going, cotton candy.
I was going to talk about the economic income or economic benefits, but go back to food. So I found myself wondering, and again, maybe somebody who goes to the fairs now more often will be able to tell, are there healthy, is there a vegan trailer now or 2 or 3? Is there a place where you can get gluten-free? All these things, because predominantly fairs are known for fried stuff. If it can be fried, it happened at a fair, right?
Right. And that's the one that I was telling you about just before we started recording. We were in Louisville, Kentucky. There was an event going down on the Ohio River, down at the river park. And the big thing that I remember was you could get deep fried butter. So they were taking a 1/4 pound stick of butter, putting it on a stick, dipping in it batter, and frying it.
Did you taste it?
It was like pancake batter. So it was a sweetened kind of batter, but the whole idea of eating an entire stick of butter.
And if we have any Europeans listening to this, they're going to be cringing because none of them would do that, right? We know that they would not.
And I haven't seen it yet. With the fair coming up, there will definitely be a report coming up going into the start of the Texas State Fair. Local news agency is like, the new carnival must have food for this year.
Yeah.
And it's been fried Oreos. It's been fried Twinkies. It has been the fried pickles and taking a whole dill pickle. And I don't know, are dill pickles an event in Arizona?
Dill, all I know is that dill, whatever happens in dill is really good for you. And it's good for your joints like magnesium and stuff. It has magnesium and potassium. So if there's any saving grace to having a dill pickle dipped in a fried batter, maybe as you're walking around the fairgrounds, it's good for you.
But okay, so honestly, do they do that? Do you go to any of the events there where they have those huge pickles? I mean, it is a large cucumber, dill pickled individual purchase, and people buy them and just sit there and will munch a dill pickle for hours as they take a bite and walk through.
Yeah, I don't, but what's the Renaissance Festival? Are they doing it there? Because I know that's another outdoor event where people go and get food and get their turkey legs and all that. But I wonder.
Yeah, but turkey leg is one of those things. It's supposed to be met. It's a great Renaissance food.
Yeah, no, that I get. That's why I just wonder what has been added or not. So
if you're taking one of those massive dill pickles anyhow, that's already 6 inches long and pickled, and then you're battering that and then
yeah.
Wow.
So I did look at a couple of other statistics, which you should be proud of me, brother, that I looked at.
Yay, good for you. What else?
Yeah, I know, right? So last year, at the Ohio State Fair, the economic impact was 68.5 million, roughly. That's a lot of money, right? And
that's all in the Columbus area.
Yeah, and they had over 1,006,000 visitors in 2023 to the Ohio State Fair. And then I came to Arizona, and I didn't get the exact same stats, but it said that Arizona was in the top 5 in the country for drawing over 1 million people. So the only thing I can think about that, because of our timing being September into October, that is when our winter visitors come back, right?
The snowbirds are starting to come back.
And it is, in theory, cooler and a little bit nicer out, and people, we have the opposite of those people that are snowed in the winter. We have that we stay in the summer. So people are excited to be outside. But I thought that was kind of fascinating to say that Arizona was in the top 5.
Well, and in the spirit of taking advantage of the weather, the season, that sort of thing, which is definitely why Texas and Arizona are later.
Yeah.
Florida is in February.
Oh, that makes total sense.
It's like, why not take advantage of the beautiful weather in Florida?
Yeah. And have through the years, have things changed based on that? So I want to make sure that we talk about the shows at the fairs before our time is up, because
Well, and tonight is at the Sandusky County Fair is the big night. Tractor pulls are over. Tonight is the demolition derby, since it's the last
weekend.
and I think they're calling it's heavy metal.
Oh,
okay. Demo derby or something like that, or wrecked metal, so one of those two.
But one of the Up With People alumni from Finland answered, and he said to me, we did X number of shows a day for however long at the Albuquerque State Fair. And then he wrote back and he went, which is probably the New Mexico State Fair. But it reminded me, and I could not find that picture quick enough. We performed at the Colorado State Fair, and the ticket, you guys, I'll never forget the ticket. So Up With People, Helen Reddy, Mac Davis, Anita Bryant, and Three Dog Night. So
where's that at?
That was at the Colorado State Fair the year I traveled. Yeah. And I flew home for Dan and Eleanor's wedding, so I missed a night or two of that. And
your friend from Finland is absolutely right. The New Mexico State Fair in Albuquerque.
Makes sense.
Starts September 5th, ends on the 15th.
Okay. I thought that was, it made me think about the shows, because half the people that answered get a ticket to the show. Like people will go to the demolition derby or whoever the big show is. And then that becomes their day. They're at the county fair. So the same thing happens at the state fairs, right? If you're going to
and of course, here in the Southwest, aside from horse and cattle and junior livestock and things like that, you automatically got to throw in some rodeo days.
That's true.
And some rodeo events. In conjunction with the Texas State Fair, there is also the Texas State Auto Show, which goes on the grounds at the same time. So leveraging and taking advantage of introducing 2025 model year cars, the Texas Auto Show will be going on the ground. So if you're a car person, if you're a rodeo person, if you're a gardener, whatever the case may be, there is something at the fair for you.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And do you have one of the memories that I have? Got to bring this one up. I was older. I think it was probably the year I was out. I graduated in 83, took a year off, didn't go to start at state until 84.
Okay.
So it was probably the 1983 Sandusky County Fair version. I remember meeting with Bob Roush in the Farm Bureau tent.
Yeah.
And he was actively promoting deep fried soybeans as a snack. And I remember having the conversation. It was, of course,
God bless Bob.
And he's sitting there, and it was the fact that he's talking to me about, wouldn't this be great at a bar? Can you imagine having this with a beer? And the salty crispiness and that sort of thing. And it's like, I've obviously grown up, because Bob Roush is talking to me about having
beer nuts.
At the Farm Bureau tent.
Oh my God, that's funny. And it is absolutely the kind of thing I remember, because when I thought our burgers at school were awful, we used to make jokes about they were soybeans, because that's what the farmers grew. And now people purposely get soy burgers. So
soy burgers.
Yeah. All right, brother.
We do.
I think you should wrap this up and take us out. And everybody has learned so much about real estate today.
It's not about real estate all the time. We blend lifestyle and real estate together. And this is talking a lot more about lifestyle and what's going on. And there's a state fair wherever you live.
That's true.
In some cases, you may have 2 or 3 opportunities
exactly.
to make it to the state fair.
Yeah.
And if your state is small enough, you don't have to worry about an overnight trip or a 2-night trip in a hotel and everything else. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. We've laughed, we've reminisced, we've talked about the county fair. And I've got to pause. Sandusky County Fairgrounds was used in a motion picture 1944 called Home in Indiana. I had always heard that State Fair, one of the original versions of the musical State Fair, had been filmed there. Not the case. It was called Home in Indiana, and they decided the Sandusky County Fairgrounds, which at the time in the 1940s was still running harness races, was used for, filmed in town for 10 days. And it was a big enough event that when the movie came out and launched, it showed downtown at the Paramount Theater.
That's awesome, which is where our oldest brother had his first job. And I saw Live and Let Die like 10 times. So there you go. Trivia.
Wow. Okay. Is that because you like the music so much? That was, frankly, that was one of McCartney's best.
Yeah. So, little diversion from state fairs.
All right. Let's bring this all around again. Our goal in all of this is to entertain, communicate, and give you some information, whether you're in our regions or somewhere around the country, that's important to you. May help you make a decision on where and when and how you do things. Our goal in that is to help you find a perfect home for you to build lasting memories and create your wonderful life. It's not just the houses, it's a blend with the lifestyle that brings it all together. Remember, Donna's in Tucson, Arizona. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, in the Hill Country. We both work for Keller Williams. And remember, maybe simple, ain't always easy. I'm Eric.
I'm Donna.
And we are
Real Siblings.
Happy fair time, guys.
There you go.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home.
Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Sibling, It Ain't Easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.